Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Malicious Compliance. Story 1. You think my dog is the problem here, then let's put it to the test. This story happened a while ago but thought I'd still share. I live in a village with a lot of dogs, most of whom I like and will always give a tickle or treat to. However, there is one dog, and two dog owners, I never want to speak to. Rita and Tom, both fake names, mid-70s, have had a golden Labrador named Bertie for the last 9 years, and I say this with no exaggeration, he is the worst trained dog I have ever met. To start with, he has zero recall training. They try to call him but clearly it doesn't work. It also doesn't help that Tom is deaf and so can't hear if someone tells him to get Bertie back. He chases after every dog, if they want him to or not, extremely relevant for later on. Bertie is also not the friendliest dog, as he has growled and snarled at my dog, also highly relevant. I think that the two of them, being an elderly couple, maybe didn't realize how much energy Labradors have and how much training they need, and maybe couldn't keep up with what Bertie needed. Just a theory, but seems likely considering I've seen Tom get nearly dragged due to Bertie's excitement. Anyways, for context for this story, my dog, Lola, 14, is a somewhat reactive dog. Important, she does not bite other dogs, just snaps at them so they get the message. She's gotten better around a lot of breeds but is particularly wary of Labradors, most likely due to having to protect our other dog from a mean Labrador neighbor at our old house. While she is reactive, I do everything I can to avoid a messy situation. I put her on the leash immediately when we see a dog who she doesn't know/like, and try to distract her with a treat, and yes, before anyone says, we've tried training classes multiple times but they didn't work, so I resort to these methods. Only when I think the other dog will bound up to Lola and get in her face do I ask that the owner either put their dog on the leash or distract them for the 30 seconds we pass one another. Most owners usually say it's fine and just do it, then let their dogs off when we've passed, but there are a small, but stubborn, subsection like Rita who refuse, claiming their dog has every right to basically bound where they like and, in doing so, aggravate my dog. This particular time, I was in a field near Rita's house when I saw her and Bertie coming my way. I put Lola on the leash and, hesitantly, asked Rita if she could put Bertie on the lead because I knew he would run up to Lola and she might snap at him. Immediately, her face looks like I've asked if I could kick her dog. She's shocked and horrified, and starts complaining, saying that oh, this is a field, my dog will roam wherever he wants and that your dog is only aggravated because she can feel your anxiety when she's forced on the leash, she'd be happier off the leash. At this point, I've had enough of Rita's BS and her thinking she knows everything about my dog. So, I smile and say okay, then let's try that out. At this point, I let Lola off the leash. Immediately, the two dogs get in a fight. Both dogs are at blame here, they are both equally aggressive, and I pull Lola away and put her back on the leash. No dog is injured in this. I made sure to get Lola away fast enough that neither dog could hurt each other while Rita did nothing. Rita scowled at me, then moved on quickly with Bertie, but now whenever we see each other she diverts Bertie away from us, so problem solved, and she's never again questioned Lola's reactivity. I'm aware that may have been an move on my part, but honestly I didn't care. We had had that same conversation far too many times that I needed to show her that some dogs simply don't like other dogs in their faces, and that Bertie was not the perfect angel she thought he was. To clarify, I knew if I let her off the leash there wouldn't have been any physical harm done to either dog, just a small fight which would have hopefully put Bertie and Rita in their places. Story 2. Yes sir, we do expect payment up front. A little background info. I live in a popular tropical tourist destination and one of my jobs is as crew on a snorkel boat. I set up the boat before the trip, lifeguard, give history about the area, etc. My captain is also the owner of the business, so what he says goes and knows the local waters like the back of his hand. Our company consists of him, me, and his GF who manages bookings, phones, emails. We aren't low quality but we don't offer full meals or entertainment on board and focus solely on the snorkel experience, because of that compared to the larger boats our private charters are lower cost than most competition. In turn, we often get penny pincher people. Onward to the main story. A family of 22 had been hounding our office before they even arrived to our location, our office's words. They were pushy and trying to get discounts and free upgrades, so I was already dreading this charter. Generally we take a card number and charge it before the charter, but this group was adamant about paying cash. Office and captain said fine but told me to get payment before getting them on the boat. Our boat is 50 feet long and stays moored offshore a few hundred yards, so we use a water taxi to ferry from the shore to boat. I got dropped off to get payment, check the group in, and give them pre-boarding info. I walked up to the main guy paying for everything to start the process, and that's when things went downhill. M equals me, G equals guy. G, hello, which boat are we going on? M, points to our boat, that pretty one right there. G, that's not the boat we are going on. M, yes it is, there isn't any other boat sir. G, no, the boat looks like this, shows me photo of boat from our website. M, yes sir, that is the same boat. We just had the bottom and paint replaced a month ago. I guess our office hasn't updated our website, sorry about the confusion, but I assure you it is the exact same boat. G, well I don't think you're trying to deceive me, but then why would they send me that photo? M, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what to tell you, it is the same boat. G, well I think we need to go out and inspect it and look at it before we decide to go and pay for it. M, I'm sorry sir, that's not how this works. We have already set up the boat for the charter and blocked any other bookings to accommodate your private charter. You can pay and we can take your family out for their excursion, or you can decide not to go. We haven't received payment from you, so we have no obligation to you and no money to return. What would you like to do? G, then we don't want to go on the boat. M, okay sir, sorry it didn't work out, you and your family have a good day. I picked up my stuff, turned around, got in the water taxi and left them on the shore. As we rode away I could see the guy already on the phone trying to call the office. I called his bluff and he was panicking because his whole family just heard him say they didn't want to go, even though a lot did. Got back to the boat and explained to Cap what happened. He said it sounds like he doesn't want them on his boat anyway and their loss. We had planned to refuel after their trip but decided to do it now since we now had the morning open. They were still on the shore when we left but were gone when we got back. Once back on shore, the other guys who run activities in the same area told us the group had hung around for about an hour. I guess the guy was very convinced we would come crawling back, but when we didn't the family started fighting since many had still wanted to go. Now they have to try to find another boat that has 22 spaces open and will most likely cost 2-3x more than us. It was totally worth waking up early without pay. Story 3. International cell phone rates. Some time ago my company was moving our factory out of the country. As I was a critical component of the transition, I was spending 50% of my time at the new factory location. I had a company from her cell phone to do my company business on as well as my own personal phone. I applied for international rates on my personal cell phone and used it for my personal calls. After 1 or 2 trips to the new factory location, I noticed my company cell phone bill was quite high. Almost $600 a month. I tried to make calls from the office whenever I could to reduce costs. However, it was sometimes necessary to call when I was out in the shop. I had to call back to the USA factory to clarify issues. I then approached my admin assistant and applied for international rates on my company phone. The international rate of my company phone would have been $45 a month. I found out shortly that my director had not approved my request for international rates, stating it was not in his budget. I contacted my director and explained to him my situation and the cost avoidance of an international rate. He explained that I had a company cell phone for a reason and that I should use it. My malicious compliance followed. I no longer felt bad about making calls from the shop. In fact, it was easier for me to spend most of my day in the shop. So my cell phone bill for the next 30 months on my company phone hovered around $1,000 to $1,200. The bill went from $1,500 for 30 months to over $30,000. I never understood that decision as that money came out of his budget anyhow. Story 4. Need a more detailed report? Fine. I got contacted 3 times, each time progressively nastier about how much my local voluntary fraternal group had donated to charities. I sent them a list of the charity's total donations of materials and any cash. First call, they wanted exact hours worked, supplies, and cash donations. Okay, I supplied all 3 sent back. Second call, this wasn't good enough. They wanted a separate list for each charity. Okay, I divided them up and sent it back. Third call, snottiest call ever, what didn't I understand? They needed itemized. This just wasn't clear enough. Get it right. Fine. We make reusable sanitary pads for school-age ladies in Liberia and also sew different items for 3 local charities. I calculated cost of the fabrics down to the inch, of each color of fabrics, cutting times, depreciation of scissors, thread per item, assembly, sewing time, time walking to and from the cutting area to the sewing area, shoe tread depreciation, time sewing, depreciation of sewing needles, electricity depreciation of the carpet in the room, snacks, prep, and cost of lunch, beverages per glass, condiments, shopping time, gas, depreciation of vehicles on and on. I did the same list for each charity. You name it, they got it single-spaced, 9 font, pie charts, graphs. Everything 30+ pages total. Took me about 12 hours, and I had a great time doing it. I can't wait for them to open the doc. Then they have to print numerous copies for theater board members and to national as well. Don't mess with the bull, baby. You'll get the horns. Fallout, I received an email. While we appreciate the thoroughness of the report, we request a condensed version, following the parameters set forth in the logbooks. Resent them the original report. Let's see how that goes over. Final, I hope. Update. I received an email today, sent to all chairs of finance, with a new form attached to fill out to the best of your ability. I have put the whole email on my profile for your viewing pleasure. I cannot share the form, but I assure you I will be copying/pasting as much information as I can fit in the appropriate sections. Thank you all for your great. Story 5. I want to be notified about every single critical issue, and then he greatly regretted it. Years ago I ran the daily operations of a mid-size IT company. Large enterprise, government, medical, and other facilities would outsource their IT to the team I ran. We had departments that supported us with finance and sales, but all other operations fell under my management. I answered to the owner of the company, who was great when we started off together, but over time grew very resentful and abusive. Long ago he worked in IT, but nowadays his skills were outdated and his knowledge was on par with a Tier 1 technician, but if he actually tried to do the job then the actual Tier 1s would have easily outperformed him. I oversaw a few dozen technicians and we managed IT for thousands of companies, with each technician closing approximately 150 tickets a day, empowered by automation and their own knowledge. Since these companies and government entities were responsible for things like actual 911 services, running prisons, doing dangerous pressure testing in environments with explosion risks and more, you can imagine we were routinely receiving tickets that were urgent. In fact, we had a system clearly defined that dictated exactly what criteria constituted an emergency versus an urgency. Even with all that in place, half our tickets would meet the criteria of being an emergency. Things as simple as a camera not working could mean not seeing criminals waiting on the other side of a door, for example. My team lived every day fully immersed in emergency to the point where we were all dead inside. We would rise to the responsibility and treat it appropriately, but when everything is an emergency, nothing is an emergency. We regularly heard compliments about how cool-headed and calm we were able to respond to emergencies, which was always funny to us because internally we knew it was because we stopped giving a fuck years ago, but still knew how to be professional. Over time, feedback from co-workers regarding things said behind my back and to my face, I can only assume the owner felt threatened by me and the way the team looked to me to lead. He would give them bad instructions or orders they knew would go against something standard and they would look to me to confirm. He accused me of a lot of horrible things, got really abusive, and would routinely try to tear me down in front of everyone. I essentially lived on call 24/7 and would rely on technicians being skilled enough to not escalate to me after hours, but it was unavoidable. When they knew a choice had to be made and not just a solution provided, they would always call to ask which I preferred. No big deal. It helped me keep clients happy by choosing options I knew they would want from my experience with their managers. Sometimes I would be unavailable when they would try to call, and as an alternative, if they could not reach a senior engineer on our team, they would finally surrender and call the owner. They didn't want to be responsible for bad decisions and I don't blame them. Calling the owner gave them some CYA, cover your ass. Every time this would happen, the owner would always drastically exaggerate the urgency of the situation and treat it like it was the biggest case we had in months. It was always all hands on deck needed to support him in this crisis that he was creating, and so more technicians would get involved and drastically more hours invested than necessary. Then he would inevitably pat himself on the back for how great he is in solving this massive emergency. Use it to highlight why he is around and how the big problems go to him. Then circle back to rip me apart in front of everyone once we are all back in the office to show how I'm not managing my responsibilities and how much better he is than myself. To quote an old line from a shitty movie, to him it was the biggest emergency in months, but to me, it was Tuesday. Anyways, not to get too boring and rant too much, he ripped me in front of everyone. Took me behind closed doors to yell at me how this one particular emergency could have cost us so much money, cost us the customer, and it's all my fault. I'm tired of his shit, so I tell him how it could have been resolved compared to how he resolved it, and that he is so unaware of daily operations he has no idea how insignificant this issue was by comparison. He assures me he is aware of every detail going on in this company at all times. He's not, and that if emergencies are happening then he needs to be notified of them. I tell him he's underestimating how many emergencies happen and he's fuming that I'm not taking his shit. He makes a mistake and demands yelling, from now on I want to be notified about every single critical issue. I ask him if he's fine with me notifying him by email. He screams back, do whatever the fuck you want. I want to be notified about every single fucking critical issue from now on. So I promise him I will absolutely notify him and keep him informed of everything from here forward. He's the boss. For anyone not aware, a common form of malicious compliance in the IT world is for someone to invest a very small amount of effort into scripting or automating something that causes another person's life to be a living nightmare. The boss is old, and operates slowly through his day using email. He never goes into the ticket system and doesn't abide by any of the policies he screams at people for not following. In our ticket system, the tickets assigned to him are like entering a graveyard of endless promises that never happen and constant lies about not seeing that email. It takes me all of 2 minutes to set up a rule that our system automatically sends him an email absolutely any time a ticket is marked critical. Even if it's done incorrectly and someone more senior corrects it back to a lower status, too late, email is already sent. Immediately he gets hundreds of emails for his own existing tickets, then thousands more follow for all the other tickets. His inbox is so out of control that his lies about not seeing that email are suddenly made real. Making the situation even funnier, he was meeting with a client at their office when the tones on his phone started going off every time he received an email. He started texting me not even a half hour after the automated rules creation, asking me to turn it off, explaining how it's impacting his meeting. I ignored his texts and let the rule run long enough that I was sure his inbox was royally fucked and he would have to ask me in person to turn it off. Instead of apologizing, he told me to turn the notifications off in person, but also made it clear that I needed to get to work to get things under control. Clearly it was my bad leadership causing there to even be so many emergencies in the first place. If these are all an emergency, then why are technicians going home at the end of the day and so on? A few weeks after this I had a new job offer that I accepted. I didn't even give him notice when I quit. I walked in on Monday morning and grabbed 2 things off my desk, went find him and handed him the keys to the building and looked him in the eyes and told him, you know, you're a real piece of shit. He was fuming but didn't say a word as I walked out the door. Within a year of me leaving, his company quickly began to fail. Last I saw, he only has 3 people working for him now, and he had to sell the building they owned and move into a much older, more shabby one in a different part of town. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.